Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at one of the most blatant examples of online leftist brain rot in real life that I've seen in quite a while. This topic is particularly interesting to me because the subject in question lives in my hometown, Asheville, North Carolina, where I was born and raised. Asheville is not quite like any city in the country that I'm aware of, and while it is a beautiful place that I love, it's like if online Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, leftism was like a city. That's Asheville. And so it doesn't surprise me that this dude that we're going to be talking about today might be in a bit of an echo chamber and might not be that aware of people with differing opinions than he has or differing political views. I also lived for several years in some of the other cities that he mentions here as being incredibly racist, and evidence for why Wendigoon, who he is coming after, is also probably racist. So we're going to be looking at the facts of this drama through the eyes of Willie Mack's show. This is his channel here. If you're unfamiliar, if you like drama that is well researched, well presented, and is not slander, Willie Mack is great for that. Give him a follow. Go watch this full video, as I'm probably not going to put all of it in this video, but let's get into it.
Nobody even wants you here.
In Praise of Shadows, also known as Zane, is a horror movie review YouTuber. He loves focusing on the political analysis of film and relating everything back to being left-leaning, which is fine, it's his content, but it does come off as a bit cringe at times. He reviewed The Hills Have Eyes.
This is a film about cannibals killing and eating a family who get lost on their summer vacation. And psychologically, most when they watch this will be on the side of the vacationing family, and wish for them to survive and make it out and get back home. And why is that?
It's because they're cannibals.
Because if you look at this from the perspective of the hill people, they are only defending what is theirs, this land that they call home. To say that the hill people and the New Yorkers are of the same nation would only be true in the strictest definition, in that they happen to live within the same borders, but culturally, they couldn't be more different. The Hills Have Eyes is a clash of when you take two types of people who hold absolute contempt for one another, and then you proceed to call them both American and equals, who supposedly have the same opportunities at birth.
Oh, my bad. I guess it's about BLM in January 6th. He ended up getting memed on.
All right, so a couple things. I looked back over this guy's content over the years, and he started making content about 5 years ago, and his early videos were pretty good. He is a good writer. He had good analysis, good insight into franchises and movies. And in his video in particular on the Chucky franchise, he still had like some like liberal politics in the video, more so like influencing his analysis. And so, but it was much more subtle. It was much more directly related to the content and like relevant to it. So for example, there was one point where he criticized the depiction of mental asylums and the stigmatization of mental illness in general in one of the Chucky movies. And I think that was good. And for the record, I think if you want to analyze movies from a unique perspective, from a leftist perspective, from a class struggle perspective, whatever it may be, that's totally fine. We're going to see in a minute, though, why the way he does it is not great.
Bad. I guess it's about BLM in January 6th. He ended up getting memed on quite a bit for this video, with the top comments saying, "This video, the family had a flat tire and momentarily tried to retrieve their lost dog. So who's the real murdering cannibalistic rapist here? It was self-defense. I don't know, it's weird to say someone's invading your land when all that happened is they crashed their car and went looking for their lost dog."
And as he falls to the ground, the symbol of inherited generational wealth, education, and power stands over his already dying body and stabs him repeatedly in the heart. Not to kill him, which at this point is already an inevitability, but to remind him of his place.
Or maybe it was just to kill the cannibal that attacked him and his family. I don't know, just my interpretation. The reason why we're talking about this is because he dropped a 3-hour-long video titled Bad Conservative Horror Movies, which is not about conservative movies at all. The video is split into 3 parts. Part 1 is calling everyone stupid for not agreeing with his Hills Have Eyes review, and blaming his audience's stupidity for his channel dying.
I don't think that most of them have actually even watched it. And I kind of want to look at this, because posting that video was a huge negative turning point in my life, and the way that that one video was received has really impacted everything around me. Before that, I was relatively comfortable financially. I could make the kinds of videos that I wanted to, and have honestly struggled very badly ever since then.
All right, so for one here, there's nothing wrong with choosing to analyze media through a highly political lens. There's nothing wrong with even shoehorning your politics into your analysis and reaching for things that are not there. But you have to accept that that's not going to appeal to a large group of people, even a lot of people who might share your politics. And I'm sorry, but the fact that you're getting paid more than most artists ever will in their life for making the art that you want to make is a privilege.
They don't even treat me like a person.
He's so dramatic. Of course you're going to lose viewers if you're going to gatekeep horror movies from everyone who's not extremely left-leaning.
Horror is an intrinsically left, punk, anti-establishment, countercultural art form that is primarily concerned with social issues and pushing boundaries beyond what is deemed acceptable by traditional, more conservative, polite society. There's no other way that you can rationally look at it and still exist within reality.
So again, the second part as to why his analysis is very poor and the way that he does it is bad is that not only is he shoehorning in his political ideas into his analysis, but now he is highly moralizing it and basically saying that any other way of doing it or seeing it is wrong. That's just dumb and wrong. And while it may be true that a lot of the horror genre is full of counterculturalism and punk and grunge, it's not always leftist, and it is fraught with misogyny and patriarchy and racism all throughout. But again, that's not to say that you can't analyze it through your specific worldview and offer good critiques and analysis of the media. But that doesn't exclude people of other points of view to be able to offer good and unique and valuable critical analysis.
The vast majority of viewers just want to see the scary thing and hear the scary story. Of course you're going to lose viewers if you talk like a gatekeeping douchebag. He goes on to discredit every other creator who doesn't apply his same politics to their analysis.
Folks constantly talk about the political undertones in my videos, but horror is an unabashedly political genre that is concerned directly with issues facing the current society. And if you're in the horror space and you don't regularly acknowledge this foundation as a challenge to power, then I just assume you're in it for the money, or that you don't actually care, or you're just really bad at your job. And if that makes you uncomfortable or upset that I often do that in my videos, that's probably a good thing.
So there's all kinds of themes in media that can be explored outside of leftism, outside of class struggle, outside of racism, etc. There are spiritual themes, there are familiar themes, there are themes of mental illness and depression, there are conservative themes, there are Christian and religious themes. There's all sorts of different ways that you can analyze media. And I don't think anyone really has a problem with analyzing media through a leftist liberal lens. But it's the way that he is doing it specifically that is so cringe and unwatchable. Right now I'm doing research into Synthetic Man and the videos he's made recently on Fallout and the new Assassin's Creed Shadows release trailer. And the dude is just like a straight up neo-Nazi. And to me, while not as problematic, this content that this dude is making here is just as cringy and unwatchable as the kind of stuff that Synthetic Man makes. It is just as much shoehorning in your political beliefs where they don't belong, where you're just reaching for stuff that's not there and complaining about things that aren't there.
That's probably a good thing.
It's a very pretentious video that only becomes more unself-aware when he starts to complain about the drop in viewership hurting his ability to pay bills.
There was a month last year where I only made $500 in ad revenue. I can't live off that. The amount of times that I've almost had to stop making videos since then has been almost monthly. I've barely been able to keep this afloat. I've paid my rent late most months for the past year.
Oh my god, this is so incredibly whiny and cringe. If you're a content creator, do not ever complain about the amount of money that you're making. Just don't do it. If you're not doing well as a content creator, you have no one to blame but yourself. Making any sort of revenue from YouTube is a privilege. It's not something you're guaranteed. Making a full-time income is a highly unique thing. This guy has only put out 66 videos over the last 5 years, yet has amassed almost 400,000 subscribers. That's nothing to sneeze at. His videos used to pull really great views, and recently not so much, but still consistent. The other thing is that he has a Patreon where he has 1,267 members willing to follow him over to another platform and pay $1 a month of their money to support him. I'm sorry, but you obviously have the talent. You have people that like you and support you. It's on you to figure out how to monopolize off of them. He complains about how hard it is to put out one video a month. Maybe start doing some different kinds of content. Maybe change it up a little bit. Maybe not try to put out like 4 hour and 45 minute long videos. Maybe go with like 2 or 3 30-minute videos a month. Or venture into a little bit different of a niche. Or broaden your horizons a little bit and appeal to a larger demographic of people. Or capitalize on this Patreon and offer like some tiers. Do like a $1, $3, $6 tier and offer more value in those different tiers. That would easily pump up your monthly revenue quite a bit. He has everything that he needs and is in a incredibly privileged position that a lot of content creators would be really excited to be in, to be able to make a good income off of his art. And if he's not willing to be a little bit more business minded about it and put in a little bit more work into it, then you just can't complain about the amount of money that you're making. You either do that or you realize that you don't want to compromise your art. You don't want to compromise whatever anti-capitalist values you might have. Realize that you're probably stagnant. You're probably not going to get any further than you are, and plan accordingly based off of that. Get a day job to supplement your income. Do some other kind of project or something. But you can't just do nothing and whine about not making enough money off of your highly specific and niche art.
Let me get this straight. This guy isolates his viewers that aren't on the extreme left, tells them to leave and that horror isn't for them, and then cries when his viewership goes down. You can't make this up. But you know what? I still kind of feel bad for him. Living paycheck to paycheck is hard. Trying to go full-time on YouTube is also hard. But I fail to show any empathy when he's continually shooting himself in the foot and then he's turning down sponsors.
I, as a blanket rule, have never accepted gifts or sponsorship for my work, even though I get a constant stream of email offers about them.
This guy is just a struggling artist. He's better than us.
Either way, you sadly became full of yourself, mourning over your poor artist soul and drowning in self-pity.
All right, so again, if you want to take that principled position, that's fine. But then you can't be complaining about the money, because I guess it's not about the money for you. So leave the money alone. It's just about your art.
But it does seem a little tone deaf to cry to your audience about bills while you're leaving money on the table. And this leads into a 40-minute unhinged rant saying Wendigoon, another horror YouTuber, is a fascist along with everyone he's interacted with on Twitter. He says Wendigoon can't analyze horror content because he has money and owns a gun.
I have no need or desire to hear 5 hours of opinions on Blood Meridian from a 21-year-old millionaire who got famous around the age of 19. There are some works that fundamentally will not be understood by you if you are wealthy and have always been upper class your entire life. And this may all sound condescending, but that doesn't stop it from being somewhat true. There are many things that are red flags that we could talk about, from the bizarre gun ownership, the flagrant use from my perspective of his religion as a shield from criticism, to the belief that he at 1.5% red flag condescending. But that doesn't stop it from being somewhat true. There are many things that are red flags that we could talk about, from the bizarre gun ownership.
Bizarre gun ownership. So this is where I question his political leanings, because anyone tangentially familiar with leftism knows that leftists are quite fond of guns and quite fond of violent resistance. Hassan Piker is rich, and there are plenty of pictures and videos of him holding guns. Should we discount everything that he says? I mean, yeah, but not because of that. This comes off to me more like bleeding heart, SJW, moderate Democrat than leftist or even like a progressive liberal. And to be clear, if you didn't know, I am a liberal. I am a social democrat. I'm pretty far down the left of the spectrum, but I still believe in liberal democracy, individual freedom, and I also grew up around guns, and I like guns and believe in the right to bear arms. This guy in Praise of Shadow's this guy's problem is that he sees a few traits that he doesn't like and finds as red flags and associates that with a certain group of people and then categorizes Wendigoon and a lot of other people in here as being in this specific group of people. And he doesn't feel like there's any way they could not be a part of that group of people, all because of these few traits over here that he doesn't like. I don't know if he was just too lazy to do this, or he just couldn't find anything to actually make decent points in this. Like, Wendigoon is on the conservative side, and if you dig deep enough, you probably could find some good arguments against him and some good points to bring up. What you would need to do, though, is show why him being rich and liking guns is bad, and then how that affects his analysis of media, or what positions that he holds policy-wise or on social issues that are affected by those traits. But again, he's either too lazy to dig and find those, or they just don't exist. So he's just kind of pulling at these tangential, unrelated traits and then painting a picture of who this person is. And that is just incredibly bad faith and dishonest and unbecoming of someone who fancies himself a critic of media.
Flagrant use, from my perspective, of his religion as a shield from criticism, to the belief that he at one point followed many far-right accounts on Twitter, from Kyle Rittenhouse to Parler.
Of course, somebody who owns a gun is going to be supportive of Kyle Rittenhouse. It's a self-defense case where Kyle was found innocent. Of course he's going to be following him. These are the most surface-level observations. He owns gun, bad. He rich, bad. I find it funny that earlier in this same video, Discount Noah Sampson says this isn't going to be a video just listing off people he hates on Twitter.
I promise that this video is not going to turn into a list of people who annoyed me on Twitter.
It's exactly that.
And I hope that this is becoming obvious to you as well. In my opinion, there is a regular pattern of behavior there, from supporting Rittenhouse to having multiple ties to other far-right extremist figures. Wendigoon is very publicly friends with Turkey Tom. They have been seen together on multiple occasions, and I've seen online mentions that Tom was either at his wedding or at the very least was invited.
When he says Wendigoon is friends with far-right fascists, I'm thinking Nick Fuentes, Baked Alaska, not Turkey Tom, the commentary YouTuber.
Tom has been accused of using the N-word multiple times in private conversations, including these screenshots of texts that are alleged to be real.
They are real. These messages Tom sent in high school will haunt them forever.
And he's also been accused of saying that the upper tiers of his Patreon were intended for Jews with deep pockets.
That's also true. Hey, you never asked. That's why you're struggling to pay your bills. Jews with deep pockets, you're welcome to join my Patreon.
Wendigoon is publicly connected to the Internet Historian, and has even appeared in his videos. The Internet Historian publicly said that his birthday was April 20th. It is not, and has only said that as a joke because that is Hitler's birthday.
Okay. Is that it? This guy doesn't explain anything. He just points out one edgy joke these people have said as if that's proof of right-wing extremism and then moves on.
Wendigoon is publicly friends with Donut Operator, and even retweeted a photograph of the two of them hugging. Donut Operator is a gun-crazed, very far-right YouTuber with 4 million subscribers.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to back this up with solid evidence.
His content is very pro-state, pro-cop, pro-gun, and pro-death to people who don't share his beliefs propaganda. For example, one of his videos is titled, "Predator Takes Shotgun to the Face," and features a picture of him smiling in the corner of the thumbnail next to an image of a terrified man about to be executed by cops, with the text that reads, "Head removal."
Did you watch the video? Donut Operator is reviewing a case where a 7-year-old was being harmed, and when the police came in, the guy reached for his gun, leading to his death. Why are you making it sound like you're against this? The criticism from Zane is missing context and is extremely bad faith.
Wendigoon seems very comfortable with a man who makes his living worshipping violence committed by the state. He's a man of no conviction, claiming to be very against the government and for the rights of the people, while at the same time giving a warm embrace to one of the biggest fascist bootlickers on the internet.
The example he used is of a pedophile. How dare Wendigoon be friends with Donut Operator, even though he supports cops stopping pedos? What a bootlicker, a man of no conviction.
The only thing that one could reasonably gather from this picture of them hugging is that he too is a fascist bootlicker himself.
Or maybe they're friends because they have stuff in common, like making YouTube videos and liking guns. But I'm just spitballing here.
Throughout this, he is not really making a point on anything. He is not explaining anything. He's not really explaining why anything that he's talking about is bad. All of these people most likely fall into the category, for me personally, of people that I would be friends with, people that I would have conversations with, kind of conservatives that we probably could generally agree on the material reality that we would like to see in the world, but have radically different ideas politically of how to achieve those ends. And this is an example, once again, of this guy making inferences based off of a few traits that he doesn't like of people who are then connected to other people who have traits that he doesn't like, and then he is wrapping it all together as them being fascist Nazis, essentially. And to be clear, there's nothing necessarily wrong with making inferences about somebody based off of a trait or two. Somebody comes up to you and they're like, hey, I love guns and big trucks. You might be able to, in the privacy of your own mind, think, this guy probably voted for Trump, and he might even be a little racist. I think it's just natural for us to kind of judge people by their cover, and having those thoughts is not wrong. There's nothing wrong with thoughts in general. It's when you take those thoughts and blast them online to hundreds of thousands of people and make accusations about a person based off of this one trait that you heard about them.
Collaborated with Nick Crowley, who constantly makes money through the most morbid and shameful true crime content of showcasing the last minutes of people before they are suddenly and unexpectedly killed.
Isn't that all true crime, all Forensic Files episodes? How is this evidence of anything?
He is publicly friends with Shoe on Head, who is a conservative masquerading as a leftist, who has built a career off of lazy anti-woke content complaining about SJWs, who says stuff like, Karl Marx rising from the grave finding out his movement has been taken over by fat, ugly, mentally ill losers.
He's mad because she's...
I mean, I don't like Shoe on Head, but she's not wrong there.
Talking about him.
He is friends with Brandon Buckingham, a gun YouTuber who has been accused of threatening rape.
Hold up, I've watched a lot of Brandon Buckingham. He has shot guns. He is in no way a gun YouTuber. This is like saying iDubbbz or Ethan are gun YouTubers. It makes no sense. As for threatening rape, he never did that. That is a lie Sneeko told. Zayn is pushing a false rape allegation in the same video he's crying about being slandered for his film analysis.
There is this thing that the internet does, where one person says something that is false but sounds believable and is tangentially related to what actually happened, and then other people start to repeat it out of context, and morph it, and slowly escalate it, until it just becomes general belief, even though it is detached from reality. The cruel and untrue things that you say about another person do in fact have direct impacts on them and the way that people culturally see them.
Bro, you're doing that, but...
Yeah, it's so strange that he can have the presence of mind to have that analysis for himself and the way that he's treated, but is utterly unself-aware of how he is doing it to other people and how it would affect them. Like, this is like serious allegations, and you're just throwing it out there for, like, I don't understand the purpose of this. This like comes from a place of deep mental unwellness. You're not mentally well in making this kind of video, this kind of unhinged call out.
Being about the hills have eyes, it's about a rape allegation, something that matters. He goes on like this for over half an hour.
He is friends with Oompaville, a gun-obsessed content creator that has taken advantage of Nakado Avocado's mental decline for fame and for money. And on top of that, has made content with the human trafficker, Andrew Tate.
Nikocado was an act. He puts it on. This guy is so socially inept, he doesn't even realize it.
Oh! Oop! 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 That's my scooter! My precious scooter!
You just know this guy turns on WWE and thinks Triple H actually broke into Randy Orton's house. And as far as Andrew Tate, it was a respectable interview that took place before the human trafficking charges even came to fruition. He's retroactively criticizing an interview that was very well received at the time and was handled better than most mainstream media outlets.
He is friends with Mutahar, who argued against Andrew Tate being deplatformed from social media websites.
I'm against deplatforming Andrew Tate too, and I exposed him to a greater extent than most mainstream media outlets, to the point where they would wait till my video comes out and post an article the next day citing the exact same sources I used in my video. Unless they're a convicted child predator, I'm against deplatforming because it leads to these hateful conspiratorial echo chambers that go unchallenged, festering in the background. There was a while where it seemed like every creator was getting banned, from Leafy to Gideon to Aiden Ross. It's better if everyone's just in the same place where people can routinely make Nick look like an idiot for his worldview.
But what if we're living in the same house and there's a fight over, who gets to shower when, and who gets this seat on the couch, and these are the kinds of things that happen in a dense.
Wait, do you
in
think
an
you'd fight
urban
with him because he's
population.
black over that?
I wouldn't fight about stuff like that. And
Hold. I want to hear the answer to Destiny's question.
Well, yeah. Would you fight more with a black person over who gets to use the shower?
Yes, and here's why. Because
Otherwise, more people are going to turn into Sneeko. We don't need more Sneekos.
He is friends with Mutahar, who argued against Andrew Tate being deplatformed from social media websites, and has recently showcased a great deal of transphobia in his most recent video.
So again, he is showing that he did zero research for this. I doubt he even watched Mutahar's video. He saw a few streamers that he probably follows say that the thumbnail art was transphobic and just ran with that.
To give any argument for why the video is transphobic? No, of course not. It's because it isn't. So much of this video is, oh look, Wendigoon responded to a tweet and that account likes some sus stuff. As if Wendigoon is supposed to be aware of that. So what did Wendigoon do? Not one of his friends, not one of his followers, him. Well, apparently he started a white supremacist group.
We could talk about...
So when I first saw this like shocked me, but it's really a nothing burger. But again, he obviously put a lot of work into this video. I don't understand why he was not able to find and present more substantive things. It is just him having a conclusion about Wendigoon and then going and looking for a bunch of evidence. And all he can find is these pictures of him with other people that he doesn't like and pictures of him holding guns. And it's all just nothing. Rather than doing an actual analysis of Wendigoon, actual journalistic research, or reaching out to him in person and talking to him about the things that bother him, or showing why his content is bad, why him owning guns, being rich, blah, 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 being connected with all these people, how that affects his content and what is bad about his content or his analysis. That would be interesting if there was something there. This is just being a hater.
He could talk about his past and supposedly being a founding member in an online conspiracy theory group that, according to him, snowballed out of control into being a white supremacist neo-Nazi organization called the Boogaloo Boys. His online username at the time was Boogaloo Boy, and he claims to be the first to have started using it, but that he left the group and became Wendigoon after things started to get out of hand. And this is not a conspiracy theory in itself. Shockingly, he literally has said so in writing.
Wendigoon admitted this was him creating a meme page where it was taken over by more and more extreme people until he left. It really isn't that damning unless you're going to be extremely uncharitable, which he is.
Also, it should be noted that the Boogaloo Boys are known for wearing Hawaiian shirts. And guess who else always has on a Hawaiian shirt, despite the fact that he publicly totally does not share in their beliefs, guys.
Zane, it's a popular style of shirt. You're wearing the shirt. What's weirder, Wendigoon wearing a Hawaiian shirt because that's what he likes to wear, or this leftist wearing a Hawaiian shirt even though he thinks it's a racist dog whistle?
So here again is a great example of an insight thought that you keep in your head. Sure, maybe you have a conspiracy theory that Wendigoon is still secretly pulling the strings of the Boogaloo Boys, but that's a thought that you keep in your head. Or if you're genuinely concerned about it, you can reach out to him and talk to him about it. But there was no evidence that he is involved with that stuff, and he has publicly denounced it. So there is no reason to bring it up in a hit piece on him, especially when everything else that you're pointing to is a big nothing burger.
This video has zero research behind it, zero common sense. Zane sits there and speculates on how wealthy Wendigoon is, as if that means he can't talk about horror movies.
Not to mention the fact that Wendigoon was raised in a very wealthy family, and with that comes from a wealthy perspective. He himself has inadvertently admitted that his family at one point had millions of dollars.
My whole thing is instead of speculating this guy's apparel, why not just reach out to him and ask him questions? So I did. He said he worked at a gun store, he liked guns, so he made a meme page about guns. Around 2019, 2020, the joke became super serious to some people, who began to see it as a for the people movement, which was fine at first, but then people began to apply it to whatever their political stance was, and it became a mess, so he left. There is no evidence that Wendigoon radicalized anybody. Extremists stole the meme, that's all the evidence available. I asked asked Wendigoon if Zane ever reached out to him before making his video. He said no, he never reached out. There was a lot he got wrong, even objectively, that I would have been happy to clear up even for a hit piece. For instance, my parents were not rich. In the quote he even reads, I say my dad lost everything, and that was all before I was born. So Zane never even reached out for clarification before assuming the worst from this guy and everyone who's ever appeared in a photo with him. I did more research in the 3 minutes it took to reach out than his 3-hour video. It's embarrassing. In 2019, the Boogaloo Boys became an official group, and Zane attributes every crime they did to Wendigoon.
Do you remember when armed men were arrested a few years ago for planning the kidnapping of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmire? That was the Boogaloos. Do you remember when white people showed up at the George Floyd protests and caused property damage and violence in the hopes that black people would be blamed for that? That was the Boogaloos. He was just like, oh geez, sorry guys, about starting a violent hate group, guys. Sorry that people got killed. I totally didn't mean to do all that. My bad. I'll do better next time.
So I remember back around probably like 2014, 2013 maybe. At this time it was probably my libertarian era, and I was also very Christian. And I was in a lot of like libertarian Christian Facebook groups, and there was definitely, the Boogaloo meme was definitely alive in those spaces as well. So it was, and they were not like far-right extremists or anything like that. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a meme that was pretty widely adopted, and then it turned into something very, very different, as these memes often do. They get hijacked. And so there's just nothing there for me as far as Wendigoon's association with that.
Is there any evidence that he supports any of this? No, it is the most baseless and unhinged analysis I have ever seen. Zane becomes borderline racist towards Wendigoon at times, doxing him.
Wendigoon and I are practically neighbors, and I know this area very well. Okay, so I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and between that and the reservation, you have the community of Lake Junaluska, which isn't actually even a real town. You can walk across the whole thing in a matter of minutes. You got Waynesville, you have Maggie Valley, and a few other small drive-by communities. And beyond that is the Cherokee Reservation. Wendigoon lives somewhere just on the other side of the reservation. That is not me doxing him. He has said many times publicly that he lives in East Tennessee, and I'm not even saying what town he lives in. According to the latest census, there are only 23 black people who live in Maggie Valley. There are 15 Native Americans despite it touching the reservation. Most of this area used to be sundown towns. It is about as white as you could possibly get. Genuinely in this part of the country, you have to assume that any white person you meet is racist unless they show you otherwise.
So this is where my expertise of the area comes in, and I can say that this is utter bullshit. I was born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. And as I said, it is unlike any city in the United States, and it is much closer to San Francisco than it is anything else in this area. It is a mecca for chronically online, rich, privileged leftists. And the city itself is much more concerned with tourism than it is with affordable housing or taking care of its local population. I also lived for several years in the Waynesville area, and Waynesville, Maggie Valley, all those areas are very, very close together, within minutes drive of each other. As far as I know, there was only one town in this kind of greater Asheville area, as it's often called, that was a sundown town, and that is in Madison County, which is not close to Waynesville. Hot Springs area is listed by the guy who wrote the book on sundown towns as a possible sundown town. But also Asheville, one of its main attractions was the Vance Monument in the middle of downtown Asheville, which was a monument to a revered slave-owning congressman from Asheville, and it was only torn down in 2021. Asheville, however, is a multicultural melting pot, and it is a beautiful thing to see, and a great example of an area where people of all different kinds of religions and cultures can live and work together well.
There are 15 Native Americans despite it touching the reservation. Most of this area used to be sundown towns. It is about as white as you could possibly get. Genuinely in this part of the country, you have to assume that any white person you meet is racist unless they show you otherwise.
As far as these other towns that he's talking about, Waynesville, Maggie Valley, etc., they are very much tourist towns. There's all kinds of people that come through every year. In Waynesville, every year, there's the Folkmoot Festival, which is an international multicultural festival that 150 different countries from around the world participate in, and they come together and share their culture through dance, music, and art, and it is a beautiful thing. These places have small populations, and while they may not be demographically diverse, they are overwhelmingly full of people that appreciate multiculturalism. And typically what you do see is maybe some racial insensitivity due to poor education and not much exposure to other cultures in small pockets of very poor areas. But rarely do you see just outright racism and hatred in these areas. There are racists there, don't get me wrong. There's also racists in Asheville. There's racist leftists in Asheville. But he's painting this picture as if he knows so well about this area, and that's just like, if you're a black person, you should be scared to even drive through there, when that is just not the case at all. It's a very friendly and open environment and place in general. But none of this really matters because, as far as I can tell, Wendigoon lives probably around 3 hours away from Asheville, and probably like 2 to 2.5 hours away from like Waynesville, Maggie Valley, these areas that he's talking about. So to act like these very unique areas, Maggie Valley is a very unique area, Waynesville is very unique, Asheville is incredibly unique, to act as if this somehow applies to whatever area of Tennessee that Wendigoon lives in is just idiotic. And it's just like he lives within like 3.5 hours of him, so somehow he understands the region and where he grew up. It is utterly moronic.
Oh, he's white and he lives there, therefore he's racist. That's the level of critical thinking taking place, but not you. You're one of the good white guys. Oompaville tweeted, imagine shitting on some of the most systemically forgotten and impoverished people in America and thinking you were virtuous or moral because they happen to be white. Then getting called out saying, you guys know my heart was in the right place. Ha ha ha. Zane is a picturesque example of true bigotry masquerading as an enlightened tortured genius that operates with empathy, nuance, and compassion above all else. There are so many of these people, it's so up how lost some smart people are. He tries to say Wendigoon is a racist for his name, saying he's disrespecting natives for using the word Wendigo.
Then of course, there is his username. To the Algonquin people, the Wendigo is a negative spiritual symbol that is to be avoided and whose name is to never even be said out loud or written down. So I know there's a bit of a hypocrisy there on my part, but we kind of do have to say it for academic purposes, so apologies for that.
So I think that Wendigoon's use of the word and explaining the mythology of the Wendigo is much more academic than his use here to just like use it to dunk on him. I was a fan of Wendigoon early on when he was first getting started, and I haven't really paid much attention to him since. But I always felt like his treatment of the subject matter was very respectful, and a lot of the stories that he got was from like his parents or locals that told these stories to his parents or to him, and he was always very respectful of the subject matter to my memory.
This is like saying Blizzard can't make Diablo or Harry Potter shouldn't exist because some Christians got upset. Nobody cares.
But don't you think it is extremely weird and off-putting that all of his fans call him Dad? Isn't that really strange?
No? Are you trying to imply something? He never elaborates. He just throws that out there and moves right along. He then acts like Wendigoon following him on Twitter was some sort of psychological threat.
Right in the midst of this going on, a very funny thing happened, and that Wendigoon followed me on Twitter. I was not following him at the time. He never publicly told people to stop calling me a friend. He never once reached out to me privately, but he did follow me, which means in my eyes that he 100% knew what was happening because I did tweet about it several times, and then followed me to let me know that he knew, and that he was watching and that he intended to do nothing to stop it. What other motivation could he have had there to follow me in that specific moment, other than to be a method of quiet and deniable intimidation? What other way could that have been read from my perspective? That was the moment that pushed me over the edge to make this video.
My brother in Christ, this is the definition of schizo posting. You are unwell. Get some help, calm down, touch some grass, go make some friends that live outside of Asheville. Go talk to some people who are not within your little echo chamber. This is not well-adjusted behavior. This is insane.
By calling everyone Nazis.
Clearly, as we have seen, everything that he does has deep political motivations.
You haven't shown one example.
And if they don't want to be seen as a big group of Nazis, then let's see how they react to this video's existence, because I am certain they will be very level-headed about all of this.
How does he not see the irony in this statement? Wendigoon would leave a comment on his video. Please no one harass or comment rude things on my behalf. I do not agree with or condone meanness in any way. If you are here to leave a spiteful remark on my behalf, don't. Nothing good comes from anger. I want to apologize for people saying awful things to you on Twitter. I did not know this was happening. I followed you because I saw your Slender Man video and enjoyed it. Then I saw you in my recommended follows. It sounds like you strongly dislike me, and that's okay. But if I have done anything to cause that, I apologize. So Zane is schizoing out in the corner, coming up with conspiracy theories about why this is a threat, when in reality, Wendigoon just liked his videos. Even when I DM'd Wendigoon, he was nothing but polite towards Zane, saying, I feel bad for him. This guy seems to have a lot of hate in his heart, and that can't be easy on the bones.
Yeah, so that would have been a great time for him to reach out to Wendigoon instead of creating these narratives in his head like a very deeply unwell person.
As if his only purpose in life is to make political horror videos.
The only thing I have of value left to me in this world is my writing and my perspective.
Wendigoon would continue to write, I don't have any malice and I meant what I said in my comment on the video. I hope nobody harasses him on my behalf. If I make a tweet saying that, however, that'll drive more eyes towards him. And I don't want to do that as a lot of people are mad regardless of what I say. I wish him the best and hope he finds what he's looking for. Zane would then delete the entire Wendigoon section of his video and tweeted, many people have said very fair criticism of my work and that I did not appropriately portray people. And I would like to address that. He apologizes to Brandon Buckingham for pushing his false rape allegations, saying, to be honest, I saw pictures of you with Turkey Tom, Donut Operator, Wendigoon, and Brandon Herrera, and often with guns in your hand. I wrote you off. I did not feel like you were worth my time. And that was a result of the company you keep. Ultimately, that is a failing on me, though, and how I presented that. It's such a backhanded apology. Him having a gun does not make him a bad person. He goes, Brandon used homophobic language towards me through calling me a low testosterone freak. I don't even know how that's homophobic. What, are you on estrogen? He then goes on to Mudahar. Your thumbnail art was transphobic. I have nothing else to say to that. No explanation, no argument. He just goes on to play victim. I was overcome with anger because I think it's incredibly dangerous that there is a man in horror that you cannot criticize without being called the F slur for days on end. I think that is a serious issue. Then talk about that. Maybe you could work something out instead of coming up with conspiracies about him and his friends. I also think it's telling that the bulk of what I said has not actually been addressed at all. Bro, you haven't said anything based in reality. I feel like people have addressed you very clearly. He blames all of his problems on conservatives and says that he's taking down that part of the video as well as taking a month off. I thought you lived paycheck to paycheck. How are you taking a month off? This guy cannot be real. If you felt like you have been mischaracterized, that was not my intention and I genuinely am sorry. Just to be perfectly clear, every single person you mentioned feels like they were mischaracterized. I care so much about horror. It is my life. I grew tired and scared of seeing hate growing on the fringe of something I care so deeply about. Horror is about kindness. Horror is about love. Until next time, Zane. Bro, what are you talking about? This video was so hateful. He posted a similar message on his Patreon talking about how tricky it is to talk about cultural appropriation as a white man and that he only meant to do good with his slanderous video. He then took down his YouTube video completely and made a community post where he apologizes but then acts like the victim, saying, I do think it's dangerous these creators don't acknowledge the obvious situation at play. He'd delete this too because his own community disagrees with him. The reason people say too much politics rots your brain is because you start to view people in terms of teams instead of judging them as individuals. Suddenly, everybody who owns a gun is a gun-crazed fascist.
Gun YouTuber, a gun-obsessed content creator, gun-crazed, very far-right YouTuber.
Everybody who supports the police for stopping child abuse is a bootlicker.
The only thing that one could reasonably gather from this picture of them hugging is that he too is a fascist bootlicker himself.
It's important to remember that you most likely have more in common with your Republican or Democrat neighbor than you do with Hassan or Andrew Tate. These people's brands thrive off division, and I genuinely believe Zane is a product of that. Hopefully this is his wake-up call. If not, just another cow to add to the herd. Yeehaw! Subscribe.
All right, thanks, Willie Mac. So look, Zane, in praise of Shadows, you did cringe. You posted cringe on the internet. You slandered people. You did not a good thing. But you also, you didn't commit a crime. You're not canceled. All you have to do is put out a genuine apology. I've read through like all of his apologies, most of which he has deleted by now, and some of his Discord messages as well. In Discord, he's basically not apologizing. He's basically saying he meant everything and that everybody criticizing him isn't really critiquing him with substance, that they're just like nitpicking at different things. Probably his best apology was on his Patreon, which is weird because that's paywalled and that's not out to the public. And he was also concerned in Discord asking like, hey guys, do you think I can come back from this? And yeah, you can come back from this. Just make a genuine apology, keep trucking along, keep making your content, and this will blow over. Be honest with you though, unless you change something about your content, unless you work harder, unless you find a way to monopolize more on the support that you already have, you're never really going to go anywhere upwards from here. There's just not a whole lot of people who want to be beat over the head with a highly moralized lesson told through the lens of a horror movie, told through the lens of class struggle or oppression or racism. That's just not what most people are looking for. Some of them are, and they might support you, but you're just not going to make a lot of money that way. At the end of the day, though, it is a privilege to make any money at all just from your art and making it in the way that you want to make it. My goal for this channel is to hopefully one day have a modest part-time income off of this. If I could work 15 to 20 hours a week on this and make what I would make serving tables 15 to 20 hours a week, I would be absolutely over the moon. And if I could make a full-time income from this, that's just like a pipe dream at this point. So the fact that he is able to pay his bills, even if he's having to pay late sometimes, with YouTube, with his art, with a fairly niche genre of YouTube videos, that is awesome. And at the end of the day, it's on you to figure out how to make more money from that. And just not taking sponsors is leaving so much potential on the table. Making money is not bad and probably would free you up to be able to make even more of your art. So that is all. I found it funny that he felt like living like 3.5, maybe 4 hours away from Wendigoon made him an expert on the region. And me living in the same area, I felt like I could offer a little bit of insight, as well as being someone who is on the left as well. This stuff is cringe. This is just as cringy to me as bad conservative or neo-Nazi analysis of media from somebody like the Synthetic Man. If you like my content, hit the subscribe button so I can hopefully have to start worrying about bleeping out the word Nazi to avoid demonetization. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.